Is what we call it. It's all about the workplace, how we navigate it. Losing a job unexpectedly can feel like being hit by a storm, not just financially, but emotionally. It ends up messing up your routines, it shakes your personal confidence. Sometimes what happens is the future feels uncertain. Facing retrenchment isn't simply about the loss of income, right? It's also about, the stress that comes with it, the anxiety and the questions about how to rebuild your life and how to move forward. We explore the practical realities of retrenchment, from understanding your rights at work and how the process actually works, but also to managing what comes next. Dr. Linda Meyer is the managing director at the IIE's Rosebank College, also a former commissioner at the Commission for Conciliation, Mediation and Arbitration in South Africa. Dr. Meyer, welcome on the show.
Thank you so much. I hope everyone is well.
Yeah, we are well. Retrenchment most of the time happens unexpectedly, but as much as we say that, there are signs and you kind of get an indication before the final announcement that this is about to happen, right? And that's where you should actually start getting yourself ready. But most of us are really in denial when that moment comes. Why is it that that's the case?
Well, I think, the first thing is that we inherently want to believe the good in people and the good of organizations where we work. But we need to understand that we are just employees. And when there is an economic downturn, when companies are under pressure, they will do what they need to survive. And that is why it is very important. And I always tell people that you always have your CV ready. You always look out for signs in the organization. So if they're all of a sudden starting to monitor phone calls, if they're starting to cut on tea and coffee, there'll be signs in the business. If the water and electricity is being paid late, if you can see the landlord is coming because the rent hasn't been paid, those will be clear signs for you. When cleaning contracts aren't paid, when security contracts aren't paid, when clients are phoning, because their work hasn't been produced, creditors start phoning the organization because bills aren't being paid. Those are very important and indicative signs. And also, when you can see that there is a high level of stress around the financial obligations of the organization that management is manifesting, those are clear signs. And you'll start seeing those at least 6 months before things really turn to a very bad point in the organization where retrenchments are then on the cards.
There are various strategies of retrenchment. And, sometimes as employees, we do see these things, these changes that you speak about happening in the workplace. And we're like, I wonder what's going to happen. Are people going to be let go? Are we going to be retrenched? But because we think about the strategies we've seen in the past, we're like, yeah, maybe they're going to do last one in, first one out, so I'm safe. Should we be feeling like that at all? Like we are safe when we start seeing these signals of a downtime in the workplace?
So I think it's a complex question for those that are financially stable. So the ideal thing is that we have 6 months saved of our current salary. But the reality is most of us only have a month's paycheck that is our buffer. So if you understand that you don't have that sort of savings, it is very difficult to wait till the end. And there's nothing wrong with getting your CV ready, putting it out into the market and starting to look for other opportunities. We can't wait and hope that things get better. It's almost like a battered wife syndrome. We hope things are going to get better, but there'll be clear indications if things are going to get better. So if an organization is in a cycle, and we understand that they are waiting for a particular payment, or we're waiting for particular legislation to change, and we know that the work will be coming. Those are pragmatic things. But if there's no signs that the business is going to have an upturn, it really is not advisable to wait till the last minute. Get your CV ready, get your skills levels up, and I always advocate for these free courses through Harvard X, edX, Coursera, free courses from the top universities in the world, these 6-week courses. And not even if you are working and you're not in a retrenchment phase, it is very important that you are constantly engaged in upskilling, because it makes you, A, more marketable, but secondly, if a company is going to retrench, they're not going to retrench the people whose skills they desperately need to turn the company around. They're going to go to people whose skills are easily replaceable. So make sure that that you are pragmatic about your situation, but that you don't wait until the last minute.
And then when that moment comes of reckoning where you get that resignation letter on your desk, you arrive at work and it's colored in black and white, and you're like, oops, here it is. What's the first step to take?
Well, each country obviously has its legislative framework. In South Africa, it's regulated by the Labour Relations Act and the Basic Conditions of Employment Act, and employers are forced to consult. So employees will know at least 90 days in advance on average that the company is now at this stage where retrenchments are imminent. When you get this letter, the most important thing is that you take ownership of who you are. The retrenchment is called a no-fault dismissal for a particular reason. But as individuals, immediately we start feeling like failures, like we have let the company down, and then it's a natural reaction to go into a depressive state. So we'll immediately start thinking about that we're going to lose our homes, that our kids are not going to be able to be in schools. So the most important thing is to take stock of where we are right now, get a trusted person to speak to. There are many lines like Lifeline, free lines that you can call for emotional and psychological support, but you need a business mentor because you need to, at that stage, because this is one of the most tragic things that will happen to somebody in their lives, that you then take stock. And I always say to people, take a couple of days just to settle down, because it doesn't help that you are emotive and you make a decision. Take a couple of days, get your CV ready. Hopefully by this stage, you've already identified that these things are going to be happening. And you need to pragmatically sit down and understand what your financial obligations are. What are those commitments, so that you isolate the problem and you understand the situation where you need to now find a solution. You will get a retrenchment package. If the company is doing this in good time. What we sometimes see is that companies just close overnight, or that companies tell you that they're going to have short time, so they're going to lay people off for 90 days, and then they completely disappear. And they do this because they don't want employees to go, for example, to the Commission for Conciliation, Mediation and Arbitration, or to the Departments of Labour to report the employer, to make sure that they get what they're entitled to. The employer is obliged to pay, in South Africa, an unemployment fund, and many of the other countries in Africa, Ghana, for example, through that fund has particular protection for employees, and most countries will have a protection. So it's not just about the retrenchment phase, it's also looking every month on your pay slip whether those deductions are being made, and that if you have a trade union, that they are checking periodically with the government entities that those payments have in fact been made, those statutory protective payments. Because in South Africa, for example, you will get up to 6 months at a particular capped amount, as well as your retrenchment package, all outstanding leave. So make sure that you understand what the entitlement is. But most important, understand what your obligations are so that you can adequately prepare. I can't tell you how many times I've seen employees getting their retrenchment packages, and because they're in the state of fear, they go and blow the entire package. They go and gamble all of it out, or they go and buy the most ridiculous things. So really have control over your mental state and get help.
All right, Dr. Linda, let's take a break. You're helping us there. So many good points that you've given us. So we'll continue after this.
Let's just do it.
Your life just got easier. Get the Channel Africa app and take us wherever you go. Catch the latest news, enjoy your favorite shows, stream the music you love, and stay connected to the continent. All in one spot, right in your pocket. Simple, quick, and always with you. The Channel Africa app. Download it now on iOS and Android.
On the Move, weekdays, 9 a.m. to midday.
Only on Channel Africa. #OnTheMove.
We're speaking to Dr. Linda Meyer about a very important conversation today. That's the Managing Director at the IIE's Rosebank College, a former commissioner of the CCMA, that's the commissioner at the Commission for Conciliation, Mediation and Arbitration in South Africa, speaking about the practical realities of retrenchment, but also understanding your rights at work and managing what comes next. So you get the heartbreaking information of your retrenchment, Dr. Meyer, and then you take time, like you said, to deal with the emotional end of it, because it's not just all business. I mean, it is very personal, and people feel like, oh, I'm about to feel the insecurity of this harsh world. And once you do that, you realize, okay, now I need to take the next formal steps. But what scares a lot of people is that the workplaces have HR, have lawyers, and they have sort of things and structures on their side when you don't. How do you fight for your rights against organizations that have, I guess, an upper hand over you?
Well, most countries have a body that protects employees. So even if you can't afford an attorney, if you are at a particular threshold, for example, you can access free legal services through legal aid, for example. But go to the Department of Employment and Labor in your country. Go, if there is a body that is similar to the CCMA, go to them from the beginning to get advice. They have call centers, and don't be afraid, because the legislation is there to be fair and equitable. Do not just stand back and become a victim of the process. And I know it is very difficult because you feel that this is who you are, and it's not. It's just something that is happening to you. But you have to protect your rights. So reach out to those particular bodies, reach out to those call centers, and make sure that you get the advice. As I said, there are many free organizations that provide free legal advice to you, and reach out to those organizations and to the specific departments of legislative ambit that is there to protect you. Reach out to them right from the beginning so that you're not left in the lurch. And also, if you belong to a trade union, they obviously will be taking care of these particular negotiations for you, but make sure that you understand what is going on. Go and read the pieces of legislation. I always find that people are very apprehensive to go and read the legislation. In our Labour Relations Act and our Basic Conditions of Employment Act, for example, in South Africa, the steps are so logically set out. And the CCMA, for example, has a very clear guideline that anybody can understand what steps need to be followed. So don't be intimidated, because that's what organizations love to do. They love to bring in lawyers, they love to bring in HR, and they want to threaten people, and people feel intimidated. I'm not saying all companies do that, but that is one of the tactics. So certainly be mindful of your rights, read up, and equip yourself with that knowledge.
Yeah. You highlight so many important things. And another thing is the administration around it, the documents that you need to receive from your employer. Those things are hard to tell. What should you make sure that you leave with as documentations of assistance that you can process your financial obligations after you leave that workplace?
Well, the important thing is that when you get retrenched, most countries, if it is a retrenchment package, the receiver of revenue, the equivalence in South Africa, it's the South African Revenue Service, the company has to apply to them with you so that you get a tax directive, because a large portion of that tax payout that you will get, that severance package that you will get, will be tax exempt. So that is a very key document that you need. The second thing that you need is a certificate of service, which the employer must give you, that sets out how long you worked there, what the reasons were that you're no longer with them, and obviously the retrenchment. And then, very importantly, as we said, the unemployment insurance fund, confirmation of that, your pension documentation. Because when you leave the employer, all the pension that you have paid, they need to pay out that to you, as well as the entire payment that they have made. Currently, for example, in South Africa, you are entitled to 1 week's pay for every year of completed service. The legislation is currently being amended, and the proposal is that it will be 2 weeks for every completed year of service, as well as all the leave accumulated and what is due to you, and all outstanding benefits that is due to you. So make sure you have all of that in writing and go to the CCMA, let them check that for you. Make sure that or the Department of Labor in your country, go there and make sure that they are able to assist you. You need to register with the Unemployment Insurance Fund, as we mentioned earlier, because it does take 6 to 8 weeks before those payments start being paid out to you. Because as an employee in South Africa, everyone has to contribute to that insurance fund. And many employees in this day and age are taking out private insurance. And something for everyone to consider in this volatile work environment that is called an income protector. So if you get retrenched or you lose your job, that you are able to get this additional money so that you are not found wanting at the end of the month when you need to make your payments. So really, I always advise people, for some people it's not possible to have a 6-month landscape, but at least have a 3-month landscape and save so that you have this safety fund. If something goes wrong, that you are able to do that. And as we said, please upskill yourself continuously. Make sure that your CV is always ready to be sent out as a practice, twice or 3 times a year. Have it diarized in your diary to update your CV. And those are for people that are working, not just about retrenchment, but making sure that you are ready to take the next step, because a comfort zone is not going to help you in the situation.
Yeah. You know, Dr. Meyer, I looked at your article on Biz Community speaking about the subject matter. And outside of the fact that, you know, you need to get to know your rights and, you know, go to your employee, go to the CCMA and all the steps that we've mentioned so far, I think a very important one that you mentioned in your article is something a little bit more personal, because this might be happening and you might be taking all the steps, but you might forget to, you know, put aside your feelings, your emotions, and your psychological health in all of this. You spoke briefly about this in your article. Let's look into that, right? Because it is going to be hard, and even when you are taking the correct steps and you're getting all the knowledge, it's not going to make it any easier emotionally. So what can you do as well when that hits to also stay afloat on a psychological level?
So it's very important that, as we said, that phase, and it's really take that 5 or 7 days, that week of grieving, so that you can deal with your emotions, but get a support mechanism. So get a trusted person. The other thing is, don't lie to the people closest to you about what's going on. So often we see people that are getting up, getting dressed, leaving the house because they are so embarrassed for their family to know that they actually have lost their job.
Yeah.
Or what they're going through. Be honest with the people that support you, because if they don't know what's going on, you're going to have this added pressure about, you know, lying to them and being a fraud. The next thing is, as we said, reach out to helplines, Lifeline, you know, the CCMA call center. Reach out to these people so that they can emotionally support you. Also, very importantly, that you have a routine. So wake up at a particular time every morning and have a balanced routine. So if you say, I'm going to get up, I'm going to have breakfast at 7:30, I'm going to exercise for an hour,
That's great.
and then I'm going to get ready for the day, and then I'm going to take time to make sure that I job hunt for the next 3 or 4 hours, reach out to employment agencies, register with the Department of Employment and Labor, whatever those steps are, make sure that you have that. Attend to your training, your studying every day, and make sure that you have a plan for your life going forward.
I love
Don't
that.
forget,
Sure. Go
it's
ahead.
not who you are, it's something that's happening to you.
I love that final advice there, Dr. Linda. You've given us some fantastic tips there. Where can we find your article or some of the work that you do, Dr. Linda Meyer?
Just on our website, or just Google Dr. Linda Meyer and the subject, retrenchment, and you'll certainly find it. But you're welcome, if you need any advice, to email me. My email address is on our Rosebank College or our Rosebank International University College in Ghana's website, and happy to give you advice.
This has been great. I love the optimism and the positive forward motion that characterize the nature of this talk. Thank you so much, Dr. Meyer.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. Be well.
That's Dr. Linda Meyer, Managing Director at the IIE's Rosebank College, a former commissioner as well at the Commission for Conciliation, Mediation and Arbitration in South Africa. We know that as CCMA. Time for us to move on now. Let's get the latest sports.